Yeah, I can see the insights. Almost half of the attendees are like already the product managers, and almost 45% are aspiring to the PM, and remaining 10% are not in the PM role. Or it's a good insight. Thanks for that. So, can we move on to the next question before we kickstart the session? Yeah, I want to understand. Okay, interesting. So the question is product management an art or science? Are there anyone who believe it's a combination of both? If so, please raise your hand.
We're getting a lot of hand raises.
Okay, cool. I'll answer this question before we close the session. It's an interesting question to answer for sure. Moving on. So I'll give a quick introduction about myself. Thanks, Aline, for setting the context. So this is Vishnu. I'm Senior Vice President Product at Z Entertainment India Limited. So I have almost 16 years of work experience. I completed my graduation from BITS Pilani, and I started working in 2008. The first 3 years, I was working in the consulting industry, and thereon I joined a startup in 2012, which was into HR analytics. So I joined as a business analyst there, and eventually moved into product. So we eventually got acquired by Gartner. So I was with the same company for almost 8 years till 2020. So before I moved away from that product called Talent Neuron, I was owning one of the products within the Gartner. And then in 2020, I moved to Freshworks. I was part of the customer experience team. I was working on Freshdesk as well as some other customer suite of products within Freshworks. I was there for 2 years. And eventually, I joined Z 18 months back. So at Z, I'm responsible. I own the entire B2B ecosystem as well as the syndication, and also one of the new products that we're launching very soon. So this is about me. So one question I want to ask, as I was, Halin, can you bring that up question? I'm pretty sure most of you are following cricket, and we have finals tomorrow. So any idea who can be the player of the finals tomorrow? Any guesses? Are you guys even following cricket? I was little apprehensive to have this session day before the finals, and but yeah, I'm glad we are having this session, and I'm asking this question because we are in the finals, right? I'm pretty sure most of you are looking forward.
We have an answer for Jadeja.
Jadeja. So most of you don't believe that Australia is going to win, right? Okay, so I'm pretty sure we'll see a good match tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get the World Cup. So moving on. So let's start our session. It's defining
Vishnu,
North
I
Star.
think you should be able to share your screen now.
Let
Let
me
me
try.
stop sharing mine. I think I
Yeah.
fixed it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Can you see now? Are you able to see my screen?
No. Oh no. I do not know what's wrong.
I don't know why this issue is coming up. Test session.
Is are you sharing your screen?
No, I'm trying to, but it says no. I'm not getting any error message as well.
Oh, I have um got changed some settings, so it should be okay now.
Aline, I think it's okay. We can continue you sharing the screen. That's
Okay,
fine.
I'll do that.
There are only a couple of other slides,
Yeah.
which can be a working session. So that should be okay. So, welcome to the session. And of course, it's a 2 hour session. The last 20 minutes will keep it for the Q&A. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I just want to ensure that, we keep it as an interactive session than one sided conversation. So, use the chat window for answering any questions. And also, if you have any doubts upfront relating to what we are discussing here, you can actually stop me and ask that question as well. So the agenda is pretty simple. So we are trying to define what the North Star metric and core product metrics are, why any North Star metric is important for an organization, right? There are different lots of frameworks that is available when you actually build your own North Star metric. So I've tried to create one or pick the best one that is actually available, and we will discuss at length what the framework should be, right? So once you actually define all this, it is very important to measure the metrics. So we will also discuss what are the tools that you can use, as well as why it is important to keep measuring these metrics. And of course, we also have case studies. The one thing that is not covered here, which I would definitely want to discuss with you, is probably we will bring up two problem statements, and we will try and identify the root cause of the problem, and we'll try and solve the solution for that. And the idea behind for that exercise is to ensure you understand the importance of North Star metric or any other core product metrics that you are defining, and if you're not mentioning what is the impact it is going to have. And whenever there is an issue or whenever there is a problem statement, you can pretty much, once your metrics are defined and in place, you can pretty much watch it over and then identify where the root cause is. So to begin with, the definition of North Star metric, right? So there are tons and tons of material, as well as information available in the internet, as well as YouTube, everywhere, right? The importance of North Star metric, etc. Before you even define what North Star metric is, it is very important to understand what exactly that metric is and why it is actually called North Star, right? For any business, if you actually look at, especially the large organizations or even the startups or the mid-range companies, the vision of the companies actually sets the strategies as well as the alignment across within the company. So your North Star metric should always be aligned towards your business goal and objectives, right? In simple terms, it's nothing but one single metric that actually captures your core product values and ensures that it is driving the value that, or the returns that you have set as a business, as well as the strategies that you have defined, right? North Star metric is not a short term metric. You always have a vision for your product. Once the market fit is achieved, when you are actually trying to thrive into the market, this specific metric will help you. It acts actually as a fog light for your business, whether you are heading into the direction as per the vision that you have set, or whether you are actually lagging behind your goals or the objectives as a company that you have set, right? So it's a single metric that will uh, align the entire objectives as well as the strategies, and to ensure that you are moving ahead in the right direction. So that's the definition of a North Star metric. And there are also a lot of core product metrics, right? So if, let's say, especially in the large organizations, um, there can be hell number of core metrics that exist, right? So all these are complementary, which will be eventually adding up to your North Star metric. And the metric that you define, which is the North Star metric, some also call as focus metric, because there can be multiple North Star metrics as well for any specific organization. So the core product metrics will help you to ensure it is complementing your North Star metric. At the same time, it is acting as a building block for your North Star metric, right? We will also discuss the problem statement I was talking about. We will discuss whenever there is an issue for any specific large company or any organization, how the core product metrics are going to ensure have an impact on the North Star metric, whether your metric is actually moving in the right direction or not. And one more thing, your north star metric should always be measurable, right? We will of course discuss at length what it is. And also you need to understand why north star metric is very important. In fact, the specific core product metrics or north star metric was not a I would say the buzzing word or the common phenomena almost 15-20 years back, right? So as and when the digital landscape got established in the market, as well as the landscape was growing up, a lot of e-commerce companies as well as the digital products came into the equation. uh, they started defining the north star metric to ensure the core customer experience is delivered and it is defined and measured to ensure they're moving in the right direction, right? So the reason why it is important is, as I said, you have to first define your vision, and then once the vision is there, you need to ensure that is flowing in seamlessly till within all functions within the organization, as well as all the business units within the organization. So end of the day, it is very essential for any organization to speak one language when it comes to achieving holistic business objectives for that specific company, right? So that's the reason why it is very important your north star metric, it should be in such a way that it should be in alignment with your company goal, right? As I said, there are different tools as well as analytic tools that exist in the market, as well as you can define your own analytic tools as well, which will help you to measure the progress, and it will help you to define whether you are successfully heading in the right direction, right? So driving strategic decision making, right? So your strategies again will depend, there will be a lot of factors that exist in the market. It can be the competition, it can be the industry trends that actually coming in at certain point in time. It can be the policies, it can be the government policies or any other major influences based on which you actually your entire strategy will depend, right? For example, if you look at any startup, when a startup gets launched and they find the product market fit, right? The north star metric for that specific startup for the first 2 years can vary, and the objective can be very different as and when you find the user insights, as and when you um, really understand what the experience of the user is, whether they are defining the expected value out of your product, you keep changing your strategies, right? So for example, let's say the first and foremost thing for any startup is to ensure you get the customer base, provided you're solving the right problem and your product is actually helping the customers, right? So once you get to that user base, it can be based on the industry conditions, it can be the next objective for that specific company, can be maybe to become profitable or to ensure you retain the most of the customers. So your entire strategies will depend on at what phase of the life cycle of that product is, and as a business what you're trying to achieve. So that's the reason why these metrics will really help you whether your strategic decisions are actually going in place, whether you're taking the right decisions to move all this, uh, whatever the efforts that you're putting in, are you're getting the returns on top of it, right? And at the same time, it also brings a lot of transparency within the organization that will help create better culture within the organization. So it's not just applicable to the product world as well, it is applicable to any division as well as every division within the organization, because that one metric or probably a group of metrics, if there are different business units within the company, will definitely help every individual of that specific organization to move in the right direction. Any questions so far? Okay, would be nice to take an example and break it down from revenue and other lagging metrics. Sure, I'll definitely do that. We in fact have few slides covering that aspect, so we will cover. Next slide, Ali. Yeah, this also we have covered, right? So as we were discussing, right, for you to really understand, any North Star metric should be a value, it should be measurable, and it should be actionable. In short, what you need to do is it should give an insight if there is any issue that actually exists. Your North Star metric, um, it should be like a mercury, right? So based on the temperature, it as it fluctuates, your entire business objectives should be measurable, and at the same time it should be reflected in your North Star metric. That's how you need to define your North Star metric. And as I said, it should always be at least long term strategy. Your North Star metric should have a vision of at least 2 years, because the short term metrics are nothing but your core value metrics. But the North Star metric really should be in such a way that what you're trying to achieve as an organization in the next 2 years. So the question is, do you think? I think we have discussed that, but I just want to understand. Do you think the North Star metric will change over time, or it will remain constant? Sure. I just see. Okay. Sure. I think I saw two folks saying that it should not change over time. Almost 90% of the users said it should change over the time. So the answer is, the North Star metric will change and should change over the time, because of the dynamic. It is the entire industry is dynamic, right? So, as I said, you keep changing your vision. Like for example, let's say take an example of Facebook, right? So they have almost 1.2 billion users now. Um, any idea what they have done to improve that number? Okay, so they have grown to an extent where the daily active users or the monthly active users, which is the North Star metric for Facebook, right? It has become stagnated, or let's say it wasn't growing as they were expecting in terms of the user base, right? That's when they look for various avenues to really improve their overall user base. So one of such thing is nothing but an acquisition of WhatsApp, right? The reason why they've done that is, end of the day, for any company, right, whether it is a service company or a digital company or even a physical product company, the output depends on your input, right? So the larger the output is your input, sorry, the larger the input is, it is nothing but proportional to your output. So unless until you, whether, when I say input, it need not be any monetary investment, or need not be funding, right? The growth can be organic or as well as inorganic. Probably, let's say you want to improve your user base, you're okay to spend a lot of investment in the marketing efforts to improve your inorganic growth, right? So end of the day, you really care about getting the users to the product, and eventually you can actually do a lot of things to ensure you they stay with you, as well as they're deriving value out of your product, provided it is actually solving a problem. That's a very fundamental and core statement for any product. Unless until it solves any specific problem, there is no way that product can actually grow. So so when that happens, the reason why Facebook went ahead and acquired the WhatsApp for almost $19 billion is because the user base that they have is very complementary. Sorry, very I would say different from what Facebook was actually looking at, right? So what I mean to say is, like, Facebook has grown in a lot of markets, especially the developed markets, but the penetration they had in the tier two or tier three regions, that, as per their definition, was not as expected. But one of the products that was really doing good in all these markets was WhatsApp. So to really Even though there was no monetization model for WhatsApp, the reason why they got such a huge deal is because of the user base that they already had, right? And Facebook can find ways to monetize this users eventually in the long run. So the moment they decide to monetize the users, your North Star metric will change, right? Because the initial vision was to ensure you hit your 2 or 3 billion users, and ensure the daily engagement is actually happening on the product. So if your North Star metric is to ensure the engagement as Facebook had the daily active users, then your entire strategy depends on that. Now, after investing so much into WhatsApp and acquiring them, if they start to find ways to monetize these users, then your North Star metric will change. So what I mean to say here is the North Star metric is not constant. It gets refined. It can change based on the vision as well as the objective of the company. I see a question how North Star metric is measured in managed service project. So can you elaborate more on that? What do you mean by managed service project here? You mean to say the B2B service? Yeah. So when it comes to B2B, right? So see, I'll answer that question. Okay. Definitely, organic versus inorganic growth as well. So, I'll keep it very simple. I'll take all these questions again in the QA session. Inorganic growth is where you put a lot of um, investment to get the users onto your product, right? So which means you are spending, let's say your product is let's say whether it is B2B or B2C, the subscription value of your product is 1 year subscription is, let's say, 500 rupees or 600 rupees or even 100 rupees, right? How much money you are investing to through marketing efforts or campaigns, digital campaigns, whatever it is, to get the customer to your product. Like for example, if you take cred, I'm sure you all know cred, right? They spent almost in 2021 or 22, I'm not sure about the latest number, they were spending almost 500 rupees to generate 1 rupee as a revenue, right? So which means that's one way of looking at. The other one is, as I said, you have to generate 100 rupees of your product, you are spending almost 30 or 40 rupees to get the user acquisition, to acquire the user. So the user acquisition here is where you're spending money is nothing but inorganic growth. So if let's say you want to get 10,000 users, end of the day you need to spend 30 rupees into 10,000, almost 3 lakhs rupees to get those many users onto your product. That is inorganic growth. Organic growth is like where the customers find value. It can be through referrals, it can be like for example, let's say you explored a product and you just loved it, you started telling your friends that this product really is solving one of the problems that you're trying to solve for a long time, and it is very useful for other folks as well. So organically growing the product means without putting any marketing budget or without putting any ad campaigns, etc. The product is finding itself to the users, right? So that is nothing but the organic. So end of the day, any product owner would love to see the organic growth as the key metric for the user acquisition. Hope that answers your question. Okay. So yeah, and the other question is on the B2B versus B2C, right? The managed service project you're talking about. It varies. Like, for example, most of the B2B organizations, they care about one single metric. And I'll explain more about that metric in the subsequent slides. But before we move on to the next slide, right? If you actually, end of the day, for me, even a paper is a product. It need not be a digital product. Any physical thing is also a product, right? For example, it can be the mobile phone that you use, it can be a water bottle that you use. End of the day, anything is a product, right? So for any product, and specifically focusing more on in the digital space, when it comes to the business, it's all about ensuring you're profitable, ensuring you're growing as a company. The ROS is a very critical aspect for any company, whether it is a startup or whether it is in the evolution stage or whether it is an evolved company, right? So When that happens for any company, whether it is a physical product company or a company which is producing physical things, or whether it is a digital product, or whether even if it is a managed service, there is something called life cycle, right? I'm not talking about the product life cycle. If you look at the flow of events, right? First thing is, let's say, as I said, let me take a step back here. The first and foremost thing is the product that you are going to build or whether you are launching should definitely solve a problem. Unless until it is not solving a problem, there is no way you can, whatever you do, how much ever you invest, you cannot you cannot actually make the product fly, because end of the day users will not derive any value out of it. So as long as users derive some value, whether it is short-term benefit or long-term benefit, the value proposition is very important for any product. So that's where the product market fit comes into the equation. And once you have that, it's all about managing the supply chain, right? So the first part is you should acquire the users. There are many ways to do that. It can be, and you have whole set of metrics supporting your acquisition. So if you look at the entire flow, first thing is you acquire the customers, you try and engage them. If there are multiple products, right, multiple business models as well. If it is a subscription based business model, whether it is B2B or B2C, you try and convert that user that you have acquired into a subscribed user. If let's say your business model is not a subscription based business model, you're generating revenues through ads or through third parties promotions, etc., or third party integrations as well. The idea is to ensure how you can actually monetize, and for that you have, again, we will discuss these in at depth in subsequent slides. I'm just setting the context of how that entire supply chain should be, right? You go and acquire the users. Once you acquire the users, yeah, so once you acquire the users, you try and find ways to monetize them, right? Yeah. So if you look at there, as I said, there are multiple frameworks here. Probably this is one of the frameworks that I felt can be very relevant to most of the product organizations, right? The focus metric here can is nothing but your North Star metric, and there can be multiple North Star metrics for organizations. Like for example, let's say if you look at probably any music company, or even companies like Salesforce in the CRM space, they have multiple products, right? And they have sales product, they have customer support products, they have the AP ingestion model, etc. So all these, every business unit, or through cloud transformation, one of the other things they are doing, every business unit might have their own North Star metric. And subsequently, when you look at all these North Star metric as a group of core metrics. When I say core metrics, not the core metrics that your KPI supporting your North Star metric, but the core company products. It can be nothing but a focus metric, which is nothing but a group of North Star metric, which is aligned to different individual business units, and it is transforming into one specific metric that is nothing but the focus metric. In short, you can call it as a North Star metric as well. So there are different layers supporting, right? So if you look at, for any organization, reach is very important. So when is reach is nothing but the customer acquisitions, right? The customer reach. So unless until you get the users and try and understand whether they are really deriving any value, you do not know whether your product is flying or not. So again, when it comes to the reach, the level 2 metrics can be, let's not worry about the North Star metric here, we will focus on level 1 and level 2 metrics, right? uh, this is the whole subsequent events that are actually happening. You go and acquire the customers, you try and find ways to monetize them. And once you find ways to monetize them, whether it is a subscription or ads or whatever, then you try and engage them, keep them engaged onto your product. That's where the daily active users, monthly active users, etc., will come into the equation. And then once you do that, you try and retain the customers, right? So the retention is very, very important in B2B space. Like for example, if let's say you have 100 customers buying your product, and let's say each subscription value is $100, right? So 100 into 100 is almost 10,000. So your revenue is almost $10,000. And that is the first subscription value, or let's say the initial cost of the product. And once you have acquired these 100 customers at 100, the base value, which is nothing but $100. There are also multiple offerings within your product, right? The next level can be $200 or even $500. So there are two major things that comes into the equation. If you want to improve this $10,000 to, let's say, $1 million, so what are the ways that you need to look at, right? One thing is you need to ensure the customers are paying more. Instead of them making them stick with $100, how can you upsell the product to them and make them move to $500? So that is one way of doing it. Second thing is ensure that all these 100 customers stay with you, which means your retention rate is 100%. And they when you're doing that, the next thing is to ensure you bring in more customers through reach so that your overall revenues will go up. Like for example, maybe 100 million, sorry, 1 million is a large number, so from 10,000 to 100,000 you're moving. You need to ensure for the next year you retain this $10,000, and you need to bring in $90,000 additional dollars to hit your $100,000. How do you bring that 90,000 additional $90,000 as additional revenue? One is you upsell the product to the existing customers, and second thing is you go and try and acquire more customers so that you can actually sell this product to more people, right? So that's where the reach will come again. So here, how do I ensure I'm getting $90,000? Which means if I have to get $90,000, probably if I go with $100 as a base product value, I need to go and acquire 900 customers more, right? If I have to acquire 900 customers more, probably what I can do, I need to put in more efforts to ensure I get this number. That's again where the organic versus inorganic growth comes into the equation. So far, to attain this 100 customers, I have spent almost $50, right? So if I have to hit $90,000, I have to almost, for marketing, my budget should be defined. The organic is nothing but the referral. Let's say these 100 customers find value and they have started referring another 100 customers, so which is nothing but without you putting any efforts in terms of the marketings or the ad campaigns, you're getting additional $10,000 there itself. So that's how the level 2 metrics are defined, right? So the retention rate is here, the one metric retention is nothing but it's 90%. The objective for your next year is to ensure 90% of your customers stay with you. So what is that, as a product owner, what is that you will do to ensure the 90% retention is attained, right? So you go and talk to the customers. I'm talking about the B2B space here, not the B2C. If your retention needs to be 190%, you need to understand in the last 1 year, right? You can't do it in the end, but as a product owner, you need to ensure that you know what are the problems that these guys are facing, whether these problems have been solved or not, what is their expectations, whether they're deriving any value out of your product. So end of the day, it's nothing but the reach, activation, engagement, retention, right? And there can be some other business specific metrics as well. So if you are looking at the entire value chain, right, it's all about try and get more customers, try and find ways to make them hook onto your product, try and find ways to monetize them, and try and retain them. So retention is nothing but in terms of the B2C, it's nothing but the loyalty. So how long I can actually stick with you, as long as I can derive value, I'll stick with you. And what is that the users are actually looking at to whether they're getting the derived value out of your product or not. Any questions? Two other key metrics directly contribute to the North Star metric, or there no metric is actually independent, right? End of the day, as I said, any metric should be adding up to your level 1 metric if it is a level 2 metric, and your level 1 metric should add up to your focus metric, which is nothing but the North Star metric. There can be scenarios within the function to have it, but end of the day, it will fall in the product bucket. Like for example, mm, let's say again, I'll take an example in the B2B space, right? um, let's say you're supporting any API service, right? It's a data driven product, um, where one of the product offerings is also the customers or the clients can actually ingest your data through an API mechanism, right? So when that happens, right, normally what happens, if it's a data heavy product, your APIs needs to be very stable, and at the same time there'll be a lot of API calls. When there are API calls, it is nothing but there will be the cost in terms of the IT infra, right? So as a business, as a product owner, it is very important to understand, to really identify that the sweet spot. So when I say sweet spot, whether you can actually offer only X number of API calls per minute so that you can actually remit and reduce your infra cost. And if it is going beyond, you can actually offer it as an added value to the customers. Like, for example, if let's say you can make 10,000 API calls in a minute, right? And if you're already supporting more than 10,000 API calls per minute, probably you can offer as a product offering saying that if it is beyond 10,000 API calls per minute, for every API call you can pay, let's say, 10 cents or $1, etc. So when it comes to that, the tech team might have their own metrics to measure, to see the API performance, how many 4xx errors are there, how many 2xx success messages are there, how many 5xx errors are there, etc. Right? So the here, even though it is having a direct impact on your product performance, because end of the day, if your tech infra is failing, it will have the customer issues, it will have customer escalations, and end of the day, it will have an impact on your retention. But these metrics you can start tracking as part of the retention itself, or you can actually create one more bucket of IT metrics or IT infra metrics and see how the performance is. But as far as at least my experience, any product metric or any metric should be aligned to one product and should be aligned towards North Star metric. There can be an exceptions, but um, it should be related at the end of the day. Okay, what is a business specific level 2 metric? Okay, so business specific can be, for example, um, just say they only care about ROI, right? Like, for example, initially, as I said, end of the day, depending on the maturity of the product, where your product is, whether it is in the initial stages or whether it is a mature state, or whether it is in between these two phases, right? One of the financial metric can be just to see what is the ROI that you are generating and how much money you are spending and how much value you are generating, right? So, for example, as we were talking, right? We are talking about in this value here, we are talking about the reach, we are talking about the activation, we are talking about the engagement, and we are talking about the retention. But nowhere we are saying that how much money are we spending to acquire the customers, how much money are we actually making, right? So business specific can be anything. It can be an ROI, or it can be specific to one division. Like, for example, initially I am okay to take the losses, but then I want to ensure uh, um, more and more customers are actually subscribing to my product, right? I'm totally fine to my as a business, I'm not as a business leader, I'm not worried about profits. I'll start worrying about the profits after 2 years. For me right now, what is more important is to ensure more users are actually accessing the product and deriving value out of it. Monetize, like I'll start monetizing probably 2 years after, right? So in that case, the business specific metric can be here, like what is that, how much money am I leaking to really get one customer, and how much the value I'm actually deriving. So probably I have a threshold. Like, for example, I don't want to spend more than let's say uh, 1,000 rupees, or let's say $100 for any customer to onboard, as well as to keep them engaged, right? So if it is going beyond, I will try and find ways to reduce that load on the business as well. So this can be a metric that for you to really see whether you're how the overall returns are, or probably it can be specific to any business. Does that answer your question? Cool. For a SaaS product, what may design? I didn't understand your question. For a SaaS product, what may design as the metrics? Okay, I didn't understand Bharadwaj's question, but for a SaaS product, what metrics may be the best fit? It depends. Um, Technically, when it comes to the SaaS product, right? The ARPU is very important. So ARPU is nothing but average revenue per user. Um, like, for example, I'll take the same example, right? 100 customers, the value or the cost for each product is $100. So your you're generating $10,000, right? So when you're generating $10,000, how do I ensure this 10K is actually moved up to, let's say, 50K or 100K, right? So to happen that, I need to ensure the retention is very important. I need to ensure I get more customers, and I need to ensure I'm upselling the existing product to the customers so that the overall numbers can be taken care. So you can actually put a simple math, right? You can probably multiply all these numbers and derive one value. So even if one number is actually not performing well, automatically the entire number will go down. So North Star metric can be your own specific metric as well. It need not be one specific. What I mean to say is you can actually define your own metric in such a way that you can define in any way you want, as long as it is actually aligning to the business objective, as long as you're able to measure and track the progress of your product. So when it comes to the SaaS, typically it is the retention as well as the ARPU that most of the products care about, because the end of the day that defines how well you are growing as a company and how well your customers are actually getting benefit out of your product. Okay, next slide, Harley. Yeah, this is an example, right? So I try to elaborate the previous one, right? So if you look at, like, for example, reach is one metric. Like for example, let's say the next target is to ensure you're reaching 10,000 customers. So through organically or inorganically, you have achieved that growth, right? But end of the day, if all the users are if you look at the flow, right, the funnel that you have created, the reach as well as the activations as well as the engagement and then the retention, right? So now when it comes to users, you have reached 10,000 users, but the next question is your engagement are, let's say your target for this year's engagement is, like, let's say 60%, which means if 100 customers are actually coming onto your platform, you need to maintain a engagement levels of 60, right, which is nothing but 60%. So are you doing that or not, right? So the next level is like, and both are actually tied up when it comes to the daily or weekly active users and engagement. So here in this example, let's say out of 12 users, only 4 users are actually being active at least one day in a week, right? And also the definition can vary. Like for example, your weekly active users is like, for some it is nothing, but even if the user is active at least once in a one day in a week, or let's say I've spent at least 10 minutes, or let's say for some product organizations it can be, some products it can be that the definition of active users is that unless until they spend 30 minutes, they don't qualify as an active users. They can be passive users, or if users who are actually just flying on the product, right? So it all depends on what you're trying to achieve and how you define. It is very subjective, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve here, right? So here, out of 12 users, only 4 users are actually active, which is nothing but almost 33% of the users, right? So, and then out of which, how are you actually retaining them, right? So if let's say 12 users are coming up and then 4 users are active, and here let's say only 2 users are actually getting retained every week, which means nothing but almost two, but 1/6 of your users are actually being retained over a weekly basis. So now, and out of which, let's say only x number of users, you are actually trying to convert them into a paid users. End of the day, that's what matters, right? So because you're offering a business, you're offering a product that you think might solve the problem, and but only x percentage of the users are actually converting into a paid users. So when you have this funnel built, you will understand where the problem is, whether um, is it about the lack of experience they're finding, and that's why they're not able to come on a regular basis, which is nothing but week on week basis, or is it because they may come on week on week basis, but when you're trying to convert them into paid customers, the numbers are going down. Once you know that, okay, there is a good traction between the reach as well as the people who are getting engaged and people who are actually getting retained, but then when it comes to the conversion, the conversion is very low. The moment you see that, there can be number of reasons, right? Whether is your product cost is not effective in terms of, is it too costly for the users to buy, or is it like you have a very rigid subscription model, which is actually where users are finding difficult to buy the product. There can be a number of reasons, and that's where again you get into the research mode and try and understand what the root cause is and find a solution. So This funnel will really help you to really understand where the problem statement is and how you can actually improve your metrics. And that's where your prioritization, your strategizing, everything will come into the equation. And just remember one thing: your north star metric should be the top priority, but should not be the sole priority, right? um, the focus metric should not be accomplished at the expense of other KPIs. So which means, if let's say you're trying to improve the activations, right? In the process of doing that, you need to ensure your engagement is retained. At the same time, your reach is also improving as per the historical numbers or the targets that you have set. Just because you want to improve your activations, your product strategy should not be in such a way that it is having impact on other KPIs. So you need to ensure you're maintaining the existing metrics, and on top of it, you need to refine in such a way that you're deriving the maximum value out of this entire supply chain. Yeah. So this is an example. You know, we already went through this, right? Acquiring the users. It can vary. It can vary from business to business, right? For example, activation is doesn't apply for not a very key metric for YouTube, even though they have the subscription model that exists. But then, in fact, these days they're trying to market a lot, trying to, whenever you open YouTube, probably once in a week you get free trial for 1 month, etc., right? Earlier you never saw that. Probably 2 years back you never saw that. Now they're focusing more on converting the users into paid users, and which means that they have their own they feel that the value is more when the users actually uh, convert into the paid users, right? So this activation part may not be applicable for all, but end of the day, it's all about, you know reaching out to them as many users as possible, so that you can onboard them onto your product, ensure they're actually using your product, ensure they're actively engaged and enjoying the product, and then ensuring that you try and retain the customers as much as possible, right? Now, if you look at here, right, this is nothing but some of the questions that you can actually ask for deriving each of this metric, and it can vary from industry to industry. So we have taken examples of financial industries as well as B2B SaaS, can be media as well as retail and e-commerce, right? So if you look at the reach, right, again, it varies from the industry to industry, right? End of the day, it's all about how many people are actually um, s- use your product in the recent time, right? So it's all about you. Okay, you got X number of users, have they started using it? Are they started, like, for example, let's say, um, one of the ways to define this is, let's say you actually launched a new product. It's a web-based product, and you are trying to ensure that the reach is, let's say the week one reach is 10,000, and then you're trying to ensure that the reach is 20,000. So your whole metrics, the layer 2 metrics, should be on what you're doing to ensure you're reaching that 20,000. So again, it differs from industry to industry here. Now, when it comes to, once you have that reach, it's all about how many of those users are actually onboarded, and how many of those users are really deriving any experience, good experience out of your product, right? So some of the metrics can be yeah, yeah. So if you look at, if let's say, when it comes to the SaaS, or let's say retailer or e-commerce, right? Let's say Amazon, you're trying to purchase something, you created your own account, but then if you're inactive, it is of no use to me, because end of the day, I want you to purchase something on the product, on Amazon, right? Or it can be Flipkart or anything, or even Swiggy for that matter, right? Whether the user actually has purchased, or made at least one purchase. The moment you do that, you become an active user. Unless until you actually purchase something, there is no way I can qualify that user as an active user. That is applicable in the e-commerce. When it comes to the SaaS, it can be a registration, or it can be, again, it can be a subscription as well. But you can see a lot of B2B or the SaaS products offer a lot of free trial, right? End of the day, they explore something, and they want to test something, one of the features of the product, or let's say want to use or get an overview of how the product is, right? So unless until one of the metric for you is, you only find it, the users will find it valuable when they actually register. So unless until registration happens, there is no way users can derive any value out of it. So for you, as a product owner, you have decided that registration is mandatory for any user to explore the product. So which actually means that people may derive some value out of this product. So you can feel that, okay, let's say 100 users are coming up, only 30 registrations are happening, so which means 30% of the users you are able to convert them into registered users. Now if you want to improve to 50%, what are the steps that you can actually do? The next thing is, how many of these 30% of the users are actually converting them into paid users? So all this funnel will flow. So some of the sample metrics as well as the questions that you can ask. Yeah, usage is nothing but, as I said, it will again vary. The common metrics can be the DAU or MAU or WAU. I'm assuming you all aware of DAU and MAU, daily active users or weekly or monthly active users, right? For companies like Facebook or even Instagram, or even most of the media industries, right? Whether it is Z or even Hotstar or even Netflix for that matter, they care about the active users, because end of the day, the more time they spend, better chances for the product, for the business to convert them into a valuable customer. So that's the reason why your monthly active users becomes a very critical question here, right? Yeah. So when it comes to the engagement, the key question is like, how engaged are your active users? Again, if you see the question engagement, you're only bothered on the active users, not on the guest users. So guest users can be people who are not registered with you, but then they're simply flying with your product and trying to explore. They may not derive much value unless until your business strategy changes, or unless until you think that you can also derive some kind of value out of the guest users. The best example for this, YouTube, right? Even if you open YouTube on incognito mode, you can pretty much explore a lot of stuff on YouTube. You don't have to be a registered user, but when you click on certain assets within the YouTube, you may be asked to register, and unless until the you register, you actually cannot explore the product fully. So for YouTube it can be different, but for most of the products you really care about the active users. The retention is again pretty simple, like how many users are you able to retain, what is the percentage, right? And whether it is B2C or even B2B, it is very very important. End of the day, if users are not coming onto your platform repeatedly, which means they're not deriving any value. So it's a very key metric, because you want your customers to you know start using this again and again. The same metric will be applicable even for IPL here, right? Instead of product leadership, like for example, let's say someone takes up the next session, right? Idea is to ensure they retain as many users as possible. Unless until they don't find any value, there is no way they can actually come back to this, right? So which is a very key metric for any industry, in fact, not just digital or e-commerce or anything. Okay, this one we already discussed. So next slide. Any questions so far? This is self-explanatory. I've just highlighted some of the key metrics, right? E-commerce, it can be number of weekly customers who purchase their first, who make the first purchase, right? I just want to ask this question. I think we discussed most of the points here. Uh, Let me take an example of telcos, right? When I say telcos, Airtel, Geo, or BSNL, etc. What do you think the North Star metric for these companies? Any idea? KPI full form is key product indicator. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
MRR is monthly retention rate. You're saying, if you're referring to monthly retention rate, answer is no. It is a very important metric for sure, but recurring revenue. Okay. Number of recharges, number of outgoing incoming calls. Okay. Okay, increase in consumption of voice and data. Okay, based on prepaid or postpaid. Both, it can be anything. Data purchase. See, the reason why I asked telecom is one of the industries which has actually grown significantly in the last 20 years, and I'm pretty sure it continues to grow. Uh, the dynamics of this industry has changed significantly. When initially, when before, you can call it as before and after Geo era, right? It was only BSNL, and once players like Geo, Airtel, Vodafone has come into the equation, um, the industry started changing rapidly. Earlier, there was no data offering; it was all about incoming and outgoing calls, right? Uh, Now, after number of recharges, etc., for prepaid or it can be postpaid. Now, the concept of postpaid never existed before. Now, postpaid connections are more popular. In fact, still prepaid is the most popular. In fact, almost 70 to 80%, if I recall it well, are yeah. We will discuss this how to choose a metric for defining success rate. Um, so now there is a lot of focus on the data, right? So they started offering a lot of entertainment apps, or let's say free access to the users, so that, when they actually do the recharge, it can be postpaid as well. You can say just add to my bill, etc. All these they're doing, but if you look at actually over the time, one key metric that stood out is nothing but the ARPU, right? The average revenue per user. That's the key metric for any telco to ensure they're growing at the same time they're performing well. I can break it down into different layers, right? Whether it is prepaid or postpaid, how do I ensure, like for example, let's say you're doing a monthly prepaid monthly recharge of let's say 200 rupees, and where you're getting unlimited calls, unlimited SMS, etc. Now, if you see, there is something called entertainment within telcos, right? Where they say, okay, you paid 299 rupees, you get access to Sony, you get access to Geo, you get access to Hotstar, etc. So it is a hook that they're actually, and with 200 pack, you're getting a daily data of 1 GB, right? So the whole intention of telcos is how do they ensure the users exhaust their data within the time, so that they can push the users to buy more data, right? So the moment they do that, let's say they're offering entertainment apps, or it can be shopping apps, etc. The moment you do that, people will start consuming more data. And when the people start consuming more data, the moment the data is expired, let's say you don't want to purchase more data, probably at some point in time, because when you get hooked on to that entertainment apps, or let's say the add-ons that telcos are offering, at some point you will start buying the data, right? Or let's say you feel that 200 recharge is no more helping me to meet my needs, so probably I'll go for 300 rupees or 400 rupees. So this is how they think about, right? End of the day, for them it's all about nothing but the revenues, how much they can actually grow. And that is nothing but, if you have to boil it down, what is the average revenue per user? For let's say for 100 users on an average, last year the average revenue is let's say 250 rupees. Now, as a product owner, or let's say as a business owner, how do I ensure, and the business target can be from 250, I want to make sure that the average revenue per user is 300, right? Of course the retention will remain, that is one of the key metric for sure. But end of the day, if the ARPU is not increasing, there is no way you can actually make more revenues. Because if you look at some of the user base, Intel has almost 370 million users, right? Geo has almost 530 user base, 530 million. So more or less, they have captured the entire market. It's all about maintaining their market share and ensuring they derive more value, offer more value to the customers, and derive more money out of the customer. So one of the key metrics for them is ARPU. Yeah. So Bharadwaj, you said your question was North Star metric. ARPU has been long existing and its main focus metric. Yeah, yeah. So it that's where I'm trying to say, right? It need not be, like for example, if you actually look at, okay, let me ask you this question: what is the North Star metric for YouTube? Okay, Jitin said DAU. Active and paid users, new uploads. Okay, you can go and Google. YouTube cares about the video views. That's a North Star metric. Your North Star metric need not be a metric. It can be a simple metric as well, as long as you're able to measure the performance of your business. That's a major objective, right? Your one metric that will define how you're doing as an organization in terms of the business, whether you're trying to create an impact or not, whether you're deriving the objectives or the goals that you have set. So as long as you're doing that, that is good enough. It need not be, for some companies, um, a metric A can be a key metric, or let's say a level 2 metric, but for other company it can be North Star metric. It doesn't mean that a North Star metric has to be scientifically derived, or calculated, or it can, there is no such logic to that. As long as I said, it ties up to your business objective, as long as you are able to see um, the value, and customers, if you are able to measure if the customers are able to derive value out of it, that is good enough for you to call it as a North Star metric, right? So why is that YouTube calls video views as the North Star metric? It's very simple, right? If again, it's nothing but video views, right? If let's say last month my total video views is 100 million hours, now I need to ensure it should move to 120 million, just for the sake of discussion. If 100 to 120 is achieved, 20% growth, so how does YouTube actually um, make some money? Through ads, right? So the more you watch, the more ads are served, and the more money they can make. Whether, if let's say that 100 million went down to 80 million, right? Now there can be various reasons for that, and that's one of the problem statement I'm going to give to you guys. We can solve it together. Probably that will explain, once we solve that problem statement, you will be able to understand why YouTube cares about video views and not anything else. And for telcos, as I said, it's nothing but the ARPU that they care about. Of course, the user retention and everything are key metrics for sure, but um, as far as I know, and based on my understanding and experience, the ARPU is a very critical aspect for telcos, because that's how they measure and try and see if they are able to make more money out of any specific user or group of users. Okay. Next slide, Halin. We have another 30 minutes, right, Halin?
Yes, Vishnu, we have until 1 to finish the
Yeah.
session. So
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
fix it out.
I
You know.
mean the QA session. Yeah. Fine.
Yeah.
Uh, this is again a retail specific. We spoke about this, right, in the previous slide. Um, Let me actually give the problem statement. The two products I really, probably you can skip the slide, Halil. The next one as well. The next one is about, yeah, probably, or you can skip the slide. So this is nothing but a video streaming platform like Z or Hotstar or YouTube or anything, right? Um, Here, sorry, go back to that slide. Sorry. For YouTube, it is video views. For any SWOT platform, SWOT is nothing but, so when it comes to the video or the media industry, there are two major definitions. One is SWOT, and second thing is AWOD. SWOT is subscription video on demand. AWOD is ads video on demand, right? So SWOT means you will be able to watch the content if you're paying for the subscription. And AWOD is nothing but you don't have to pay for any subscription, but you are generating money through ads like YouTube. When it comes to the SWOT platform, the North Star metric here can be, again, it depends on the company based on the objective. It can be weekly active subscribers, or it can be daily active users or weekly active users or even monthly active users, because you're caring about the subscription and you're not allowing the users to. There is no other scope for you to make money other than the subscription, like Netflix doesn't allow, um, doesn't support ad model, right? They started experimenting in US, but in India it is still the SWOT model. And you can actually see, they have taken a lot of. In fact, that's a good example to discuss, right? um, I'm pretty sure you would have explored, most of you would have explored Netflix, right? Recently, they have put a norm that you can, they are actually tracking the IP address of the user, and they're asking you to verify because they're not supporting the multiple logins with the same account. Why do you think that is actually happening? It's very simple, right? So for them, it's all about the subscriptions and how much money they're generating and how many users are actually actively engaged, right? So if the same account is being shared with multiple folks, yeah, that's right. So if the same account is being shared with multiple folks, users are actually, like, if one account is being accessed by 5 users, they're losing revenues on 4 other users. Of course, because Netflix is a very premium in terms of the media segment, they can actually, they've done that. But trust me, uh, that industry is very dynamic. I mean, AWOD is one of the key business models in the streaming industry, and that's where Netflix also started exploring or offering the ad-supported model in the US, and pretty soon they will be launching in other markets as well. So again, the reason why I'm saying or quoting the Netflix example is very simple, right? So your North Star metric will change if you're only focusing on the subscriptions. Your North Star metric will change if you're focusing revenues, both subscriptions as well as the ads like YouTube, right? So I think, just a minute, Harleen. I Two other slides I've added after this is the problem statement.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sharing this in the chat. So let's try and solve um, a problem, right? I will explain. So this is a problem, right? So let's say you're, this is for YouTube. Let's say you're a product owner, let's say business owner. Your time spent by users went down by 20% last week. So as a product or business owner, what do you do? The reason why I'm asking this question is very simple. Want to understand how you guys are thinking in solving this problem, or and at the same time, it will also, we will solve it together. It will help you to understand how metrics are actually important in identifying if there is any issue or if there is any lag in terms of the experience of the business or anything. So just to set the context here, the problem is it went down by 20%. Now you need to understand the root cause. What can be the root cause of this? Okay. YouTube, not Netflix. The problem is, statement is for YouTube. I see response. Okay. I wish we have a whiteboard to solve this, but yeah. Wait, I'll use a. So the different options are the reasons I'm getting. Reduce ads while watching, perform root cause analysis due to an event, take care. Yes, the first step is to identify what is the reason for this. So as a product owner, especially for the product owners, right, or even for business owners, if something goes wrong, if you're not able to identify what went wrong and what the issue is, trust me, you are in a very bad position as a business as well as the product owner. You need to understand if something goes wrong in terms of your product performance, in terms of any glitch, it can be whatever, right? You need to understand where the problem is. The next step is to identify, next step is to fix that problem. Because end of the day, for companies like YouTube, if something goes wrong, the monetary impact is huge, because of the large user base, right? They cannot afford to go wrong. Like for example, imagine for India Pakistan match, or even when Kohli was hitting the 50th century, sorry, yeah, 50th century, right? The other day on during semi-finals, the concurrent users on Hotstar was 5.4 million. It crossed 5 million. Imagine if if Hotstar was down for even 5 minutes. Trust me, there would have been a mammoth catastrophic effect in terms of their revenues, right? So if, let's say, even if it goes for few seconds, you need to understand where the problem is. The next step is to ensure you fix that problem. So that's where your metrics will come into the equation. That's where, as a product owner, the health of your product is very important. It's not just the revenues. It's not just about the user experience. Of course, I'm not taking this uh, undermining the importance of these two, but the health of your product is very important, and you need to keep a track of everything, right? And that's where it will add up to your North Star metric, as simple as that. Now, I see a lot of options. Let's start solving these problems, right? I'll read out what yeah, sorry, 50 million, my bad, 5.4 crores during the semi-final match. Yeah. uh, so the responses I'm getting is issue with connectivity. Wait. Reduce ads. That's the first response. Reduce ads while watching. Perform root cause analysis. Yes. Due to an event or tech error. Yes. Analyze if there is a global event in progress. If yes, tie the content with that content. Okay. The connectivity issues. Cricket World Cup. We may also need to see if there is a pattern from the past. Okay. Analyze the 20% customer parameters like gender, age, demography. Okay. External factors like, okay, technical glitches, understanding the external context, shuffle recommendations, understanding the internal context. Secondly, see the content history as per the data, break the problem down further. Yes, we need to do that. Identify, talk to customers. No, you can't talk to the customers because there'll be a number of customers and you don't even know who they are, right? You may just have an email ID. Uh, Thirdly, to get an RC of the content. Yeah, but for that you need to establish everything, right? Time spent by the user. Did this pair with shorter videos or lesser videos? It can be everything, anything. Possible reason need to be investigated. Okay, fine. See, you guys have given different answers, right? This is nothing but one of the key questions that commonly asked interview questions if you're appearing for a product owner interview, right? Solving a problem uh, or is very critical trait of a product owner. And before you solve the problem, the most important thing, more than solving the problem, the most important thing is how do you identify the problem. And for that, you need to have a proper framework, and you need to define metrics at each level to see which metric performance is going down. And to answer this question is, I have an answer to this question. When I said YouTube video views went down by 20%, the answer can be anything, trust me. But I have picked one reason for that, and I'm trying to see if you guys can actually break that down into different components. It can be technical glitch, it can be whatever, external factors, etc. So if you have to break that down as this problem, right? As a product owner, sales went down by 20%, or video views went down by 20%, right? What can be root cause? There are only two ways where there are only two areas where the problem can be. One is, it can be internal issue, it can be an external issue. So I'm just writing down like this. Can you see? It can be an internal issue or it can be an external issue. Focus on external issue. We'll come to internal as well. What can be the reasons for external issues? As you said, it can be due to World Cup streaming. I need not be World Cup streaming specific, but let's say a mega something big is happening globally where people are actually spending a lot of time. So that's the reason why the engagement has gone down. That can be the reason, right? And for that, you need to keep an eye on competition to see if their metrics actually have gone. And there are tools for that to for you to track as well. And trust me, you also need to keep an eye on your competition, without which you cannot really come up and find ways to solve the customer needs, and which actually is evolving all the time. So the external factors can be, let's say, some mega event is actually happening. That can be one thing. Let's say there is some kind of uh, there are different ways to solve this problem, right? As I said, external versus internal, or it can be applicable to one specific region as well. Let's say your 80% of your traffic is coming from, let's say, India, and suddenly the India traffic is down. That is one way to look at. The other can be, let's say, 70% of the traffic is coming from US, and the traffic remains stable there, but in spite of that, the 20% went down because, or let's say 60% in the US and 40% US numbers are looking good, but let's say the 40% outside of US is where the traffic is getting affected. Now you know that it's a region specific issue. So you also need to define the metrics in such a way where at every region level you need to start tracking and ensuring that these are actually performing well, as well as aligning to your North Star metric, right? So it can be region specific. There can be, let's say, any natural calamity which actually has happened, because of which people are not able to come back. That can also be one of the reason. It can be seasonal as well. When I say seasonal, let's say, uh, yeah, it can be seasonal as well. Let's say, probably during the festive season, or um, let's say, probably during the IPL season if it is India, or it can be EPL if it is Europe. So technically during these times it can go down, so which is not an alarming factor. But if, let's say, those numbers are as per the expectation, let's say during the seasonal, if it is a seasonal issue, probably let's say during that month of year, in the last 5 years the traffic has gone down by 5% but not 20%. So if it is 5% down, you need not worry because it is an expected trend. But if it's 20% and still it is causing a trouble, then it can need not be that issue, right? So it can be seasonal impact. So there are external various reasons for that, right? So when it comes to the internal, what can be the reasons for that, right? One is, it can be, let's say, your infra failed big time. Let's say your server breakdown, because of which the traffic went down. The other thing can be, let's say, uh, external can also be one of the other things. I think someone pointed out, let's say new competition has launched their product and it's gaining a lot of traction, so you can actually see the user shifting from one product to other, probably to explore. That can be also one of the reasons, right? Coming back to the internet, can be an infra issue, or it can be, when I say infra issue, servers went down. let's say um, let's say your search engines are failing, right? Which means, people search for something but they're not getting what they want, and that's the reason why they're actually not coming back to the product. Third thing is, as you may see, a lot of ads. Someone pointed out too many ads. So you need to check if suddenly, if you are doing an experiment, or if you started showing more ads um, than the usual intervals that you have. Typically when it comes to the media, it is 6 months, sorry, 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes you show an ad. Suddenly, did you try and change that metric or not? So that is one of the other metric that you need to look at, right? So structure the break that problem statement into different components, right? And define metric for each of this, and in such a way that all these are actually contributing to your North Star metric. Now your impact is directly a North Star metric, where the video views have come down to by 20%, right? So the root cause that I thought, and that's the reason why I gave this problem statement, is because, let's say, when the search let's say the search engine or search API is failing, because of which, let's say, that's a root cause. People are searching but they're not getting what they want, and that's why they're not coming back. Let's say that's a root cause. Now what is the metric that you measure here to know, like for example, search API failed. Technically that backend infra or backend team will also have that, this API you're getting 5x errors, or let's say 4x errors, and because of which the traffic is down. That can be one issue, right? But imagine, let's say, your search is not working properly, uh, which means you're searching for ABC but you're getting XYZ. So Paul, I'm saying, yeah, there can be different reasons, but I'm saying, some we have discussed, there is no right answer to it. And the idea is to discuss the possible ways for this problem to happen, right? As I said, external issues, or it can be an internal issue. When you talk about, let's say, an external issue, it can be a seasonal specific issue, or it can be a competitor issue, or it can be let's say uh, s- confined to one specific region because of any other external reasons for that. Or when it comes to the internet, can be a backend infra issue, it can be your search engine is failing, or you're showing too many ads. These are all the reasons, right? But as I said, for this problem, the answer, any answer is valid here. But just for the sake of discussion, I'm saying your search engines are failing big time. So users are searching for something, they're getting something else. So that's the reason why people are actually not coming back to YouTube. So how do you measure this metric that the search engine is failing? Or let's say, sorry, search engine is not failing, but it is giving or retrieving some other results which are actually not relevant. So how do you, what is the metric that you define here, and which will help you to track, because of this specific problem the video views went down, so that you can immediately fix a problem. Yeah, yeah, the scale up can also. Search accuracy, right? So imagine, yeah, search accuracy, but what is that metric? That's all fine. The AI recommendations and everything is there, but for certain time the API failed, or let's say it is not giving the right results. So how do you know that the search engine is actually not throwing the right results, because of which this issue is coming up? So answer is very simple, right? Let's say you, no, not auto check. Let's say you're searching for ABC, you're getting XYZ, which means the search engine is throwing wrong results for the search input that you have actually searched. So when you search for something, when you're getting something else, you don't click, right? So which is nothing but the click through ratio. So you go to Google, there is a saying, the best way to hide your dead body is to put it on the second page of Google. So that 90% of the users do not even go to the second page of Google results, right? Because you expect Google to give all the results on your first page itself, which means, yeah, landing, right? So you search for something, if you're not clicking, which is nothing but the click through ratio, right? That conversion, your search input, there are 100 search inputs, but only the clicks are actually, let's say your expected clicks is 60%, or let's say 90%, but suddenly it has gone down to 40%, which means your search engine is actually not giving the right recommendations. It can be that because of the metadata tagging, it can be whatever it is. But the next part, the funnel, in the funnel, people, recall the funnel again, right? User acquisition, activations, engagement, retention, and yeah, and monetization, right? So when it comes to user, your daily active users for that specific week, at least till the problem existed, was consistent. If 100 million users are coming onto your product every day, that is YouTube here. But when it comes to the engagement, suddenly there is a drop in that engagement. So in the whole metric, the framework here, your engagement has gone down. Even though your video views has gone down by 20%, your engagement has gone down by 40%. Within that engagement, one of the key metric should be your search to, or let's say click through ratio, search to video conversion. If 100 searches, if there are 100 search inputs, and 80% of the users are clicking the search results, that is your standard benchmarking, right? But in this case, suddenly it has gone down to 40%, because of which it is contributing to lesser video views. So you guys are with me? So what I'm trying to say here is, for every, in the entire flow, you need to define the key metrics for at every level, so that it is adding up to your north star metric or focus metric, so that you are able to understand where the issue is. And as a product owner, you can immediately act, and you can pick up the tech team to really understand where the issue is, why it is actually not, why the users are not able to get the enough or the right results for their search, because the conversion ratio is pretty low, which means the API is failing, right? So the API can be failing because of various reasons. Let's say the new meta ingestion actually has happened, or let's say the videos are actually not tagged, etc. Whatever the reasons are. So because of which, so the idea of this problem statement, why we are, why we are trying to solve this and breaking down this problem statement is to understand the key metrics at the same time how it is contributing to North Star metric. So, any questions here? Are you guys with me on this? Okay. Now, another question, right? Um, what can be the objective or the vision of YouTube, based on which your everything is actually dependent on your North Star metric or even your business objectives? Imagine you are the CEO of YouTube. You want to grow as a company, but what is that vision? Or let me ask another question, right? And one of my other favorite product is Zerodha. How many guys? I'm sure you guys know Zerodha, right? What do you think? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So for YouTube, I think one of you that indirectly said that. So part of um, end of the day, YouTube is an in the entertainment industry. Do you agree? Right? Who are they competing with? They compete with Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc., etc. Yes, even WhatsApp is a source of entertainment these days, right? You share a lot of messages, you share a lot of videos, etc., etc. So from that vision perspective, or let's say the company's objective perspective, what they expect is, if let's say you are spending 1 or 2 hours a day for your entertainment, outside of your busy work hours, or let's say the chores you have, also the family time, etc., right? In a day there are 24 hours, and on an average a human being spends, just I'm not quoting, these are not exact numbers, I'm just saying, out of 24 hours, let's say an individual is spending 2 hours, or let's say even 30 minutes, for that matter, on an average, on it in the entertainment space. It can be watching TV, it can be um, exploring Instagram or whatever it is. So the idea is to ensure they spend most of the time on YouTube. Like, the market share that they actually have within the entertainment space, or the time that is actually, if let's say 30 minutes is the average time any human being spends, YouTube tries to ensure that they get a lot of the maximum pie out of it. Like, let's say the out of 30 minutes, on an average, anyone spends in the entertainment space, 10 minutes is being spent on YouTube. The idea is to make it 15 or 20. That's how they keep thinking about it. So YouTube doesn't compete with if you're thinking that YouTube's competition can be TikTok or um, the streaming apps, it's not right. They compete with any entertainment space within the entire industry. It can be Facebook, it can be, as I said, Insta, it can be you know um, WhatsApp, etc., etc. So the idea is to get maximum attention, users' attention, and users spend most of the time on YouTube, because end of the day, the North Star metric is video views, right? It's nothing but ARPU. I'm comparing with it, not exactly ARPU, but how can I ensure on an average every user spends more time on YouTube progressively? Same. Think about Zerodha, right? What do you think the business objective of Zerodha, and what do you think the North Star metric of Zerodha? Yeah. Correct. Trades done on the platform. If you look at the market share of Zerodha, it is almost 15% or 20%, if I'm not wrong. So Zerodha is one of the brokerage firms, right? If let's say in the entire stock market, on it every day 100 transactions are actually happening, right? So what is the market share? So that's how they think about it. So I think they've gone up to 20% market share they have. The idea is to keep growing it. So which means there are many key metrics that are actually essential for you to know whether your company is performing well or not. When it comes to zero, the right, if let's say the transactions is like one of the key metrics, or let's say the North Star metric, just for the sake of discussion, let's say zero, they feel that the um, number of volumes traded, or let's say the number of transactions happen on a daily basis, is the key metric for them, or it can be broken down by user as well, average transaction done by the user, right? That can also be a key metric for them. So if they actually are trying to improve this number, right, what are the key things that as a product owner you need to think about? So if you look at again the supply chain, users are coming onto your platform, user acquisition, this is a very common framework. You need to acquire the users, you need to ensure you activate them, you need to ensure they're engaged, you need to ensure you're retaining them, and you need to ensure you're deriving value out of providing value to them, and then also you're monetizing them, right? So when it comes to Zerodha, the reason why Zerodha was very successful, any idea? There are two things. From the customer's experience point of view, the brokerage charges are negligible. Yeah, that's right. Low cost, it was 20 rupees per transaction for when it comes to um, whenever you sell the stocks, right? What is the other thing? What is the problem that they have solved that most other were have only solved to some certain extent? So there are two things, right? Why Zerodha was has become so popular and have maintained that foothold, right? One is they solve the real problem, that is the brokerage problem. At the same time, they've offered amazing user experience. And what is that user experience? The speed at which the transaction happens, right? It happens less than 50 milliseconds. Whenever you make a transaction, it is done immediately, almost immediately. So like Spotify, right? The time it takes to play the next song is, you can't even imagine, it is less than 10 millisecond, if I'm not right, if I recall it right. Likewise, Zero, the success has actually on the backbone of the successful transaction, the trust that they have built with the users. Because any users, the trust comes when you actually believe in what you actually when you derive that experience in the value, right? How do I ensure I trust this product? Because for them, as when they actually were able to solve this problem of in few milliseconds the transaction, that created a lot of confidence among the users. They've not put any marketing efforts to grow their product, one of the very few products which have grown organically, and one of the most successful products that has come out of India, according to me. Okay, I think Halin, you can skip the next slides. It's more about asking the North Star metric for each of this, which we have discussed. So probably I'll open the floor for any questions. I'll be happy to take up any questions.
If anyone has any questions that you want to explain while talking, if you can raise your hand and I can give you permission to speak if you have a long question.
One of the questions is, what is the difference between North Star metric and success rate? If you recall the initial slides, right? Your North Star metric should be a value, it should be measurable, and it should be actionable, right? When you say it should be measurable, like for example, the same thing, the success end of the day, the success rate depends on what you define as a company's objective. For example, if you take the YouTube example, right? Video views is a North Star metric. It has gone down by 20%. Where was the issue? It was conversion from search to the clicks, right? For that, your benchmark is, let's say, 70%. Now, for that specific week, it has gone down to 30%. So your success rate is, minimum threshold is 70, it has gone down to 30. So you need to pick that up and ensure that, I mean to say, you know where the root cause is. You need to understand why it actually has happened and fix that problem. So end of the day, as long as it is not measurable, your North Star metric, there is no way you can actually call it as a North Star metric. So it is actually dependent. Your success rate depends on what are the thresholds as a company that you're able to afford and what you're able to achieve as an organization. How do you track metrics as PM in B2B setup? See, whether it is B2B or B2C, there is a myth, right? I mean, at least I was in the B2B industry for almost till 2020. Now with Z, I'm in B2C. I don't find much difference. In fact, there's hardly any difference between B2B and B2C. End of the day, there is a problem and you're trying to solve the problem through your product. Whether your product is not solving, if it is solving or not, is the major aspect that you need to look at, right? And for that, you need to define all the core metrics and the North Star metric and really see whether your product is performing or not, right? So analytics and these analytic tools as well as these metrics are should be your I would say the fog lights for your product performance. When it comes to the B2B, it's all about customer retention, right? And increasing the ARPU of these customers. These are the two major metrics that you really care about, right? If you have any specific question to any product, we can discuss. Probably, like, let me take an example. I was with Freshworks, before this. So, probably, let's say LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn offers both B2C and B2B. If you look at LinkedIn, it, of course it is available free, but there is also the premium subscription that exists, right? If you want to become a premium user, you have to pay X amount of money. That is for B2C users. When it comes to B2B, they also have products called LinkedIn Talent Solutions, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, etc., where they customize these products to, like, for example, let's say you're in the recruitment industry, or let's say you're a HR leader, you're trying to hire some 100 folks in the next 3 months. Where do you go and search the talent, right? As a HR leader, you can actually reach out to any vendor to help you fill that gap, or your recruiters can go on buy LinkedIn Talent Solutions and find the right fitment based on your needs. So different ways. Let's say your company is using already LinkedIn Navigator. So if you're the B2B owner of LinkedIn, you need to ensure the customers are sticking with you. They derive the value out of it, right? So if the customers are churning out, let's say there is a significant attrition, you need to understand why the attrition is happening and you need to address those problems. So as long as customers are sticking with you, your next idea is to ensure how can you derive maximum value out of it. So ARPU and retention rate are two critical metrics in B2B setup. But again, it depends on your company's objective, and the North Star metric can vary based on where the evolution of the product, where exactly you are, etc. What is SWOT and AWOT? SWOT is, as I said, subscription video on demand. AWOT is ads video on demand, which means, if let's say, take Hotstar, right? They're streaming IP. Let's say, take a Geo TV, right? They're streaming IPL for free. So it is an AWOT platform. You don't have to pay subscribed user and ad user. Subscribed user, you're buying subscription to watch the video on demand is nothing but when you click on any specific asset, it starts playing. So when you're buying subscription only, then you can watch the video. That is nothing but Netflix, right? But let's say if you don't have to buy subscription, you can simply log in, create your account, and start watching videos like YouTube or even Hotstar for that matter. Especially the even during IPL, right? The Geo never asked you to pay money to watch the IPL, right? It was free for everyone. Those are nothing but award. When it comes to the SWOT, the way to monetize is they make money by selling subscriptions. When it comes to the award, they make money by serving ads. That's the difference between SWOT and award. What do you suggest when there are multiple root causes to a problem like YouTube? It's an interesting question. So when let's say there are multiple root causes, that's where again the prioritization will come, right? There can be such scenario. Like for example, let's say it has gone down for two reasons, right? One is, let's say, a lot of people, uh, it is only happening whenever there are cricket matches, or whenever India is playing. I'm sticking with India and taking World Cup as an example. Maybe because of the World Cup, people are not coming onto the platform. That can be one reason. The second thing is because of the tech infra, or because of your search API failure, or because people are not able to log in. Let's say you made login as mandatory, right? Let's say they're not able to log in, or let's say the OTP verification is not happening. So if such things happen, you need to, as a product owner, you need to understand what metric is contributing to the kind of impact that creates, right? And if you have the resources at your disposal, of course you will fix all them at once, provided those are all critical issues. But if you are having limited resources, or let's say, and some of the problems can wait, like for example World Cup, you can't solve the problem. You need to ensure that, even if you solve the problem, it you know like it is a cyclic problem, right? It is not happening on every day. Whenever there is a match, it is acceptable. You can't expect to be maintained every time, right? So probably you can think about how we can cover up the ground in that specific quarter, and try and see if you can actually improve the numbers in that quarter. And and if and, and if you have this such multiple problems, probably, and if you have limited resources at your disposal, you need to come up with your framework to, in terms of the prioritization, and see what is the impact that you're creating, which problem is more important to solve, etc.
Sorry to interrupt, Vishnu. We have Venkatesh who has raised his hand.
Yeah, yeah, Venkatesh.
Like, yeah.
Hi, Vishnu. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go on.
Vishnu, outside, firstly, thank you so much for such a wonderful session, for taking your time and delivering the session. And thanks for conducting this session as well. My question, since you have given various examples, and you have triggered a lot of thought process of how to approach a particular problem, and the probable the mind map that you should have, mindset that you have to approach a problem. I would like to understand from you: is there any good books available in the domain where we can go through it, study them, and improve our understanding of product space? And that is my query. And to end with, all the very best for all of us for the final tomorrow. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks for the kind words. In fact, it was very interesting for me to interact with most of you guys. So I would definitely recommend to uh, read the Lean Product Management. Right, that's a first book that any product owner should read, according to me. And probably I can share more books. I have one of the lists I can probably share with you guys, or I can share it with Harleen. She can share it with you all. But one book that definitely comes on top of my mind is, like, one of the first books that I read was Lean Product Management. I would strongly recommend everyone to read that.
Okay, thanks, Vishnu. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay.
We have another participant who's raised their hand. Chirashi, you should be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, hi Vishnu. Hope can
Hi.
you Yeah. So Vishnu, I had a question basically. So like if you look at ERP products, right? For example, ERP SaaS products like Oracle. So what we're doing in here is we are building a lot of these free apps that get into bundle along with some of the pay apps, which then goes to our licensed customers. But in cases wherein we are making very let's say minor changes or enhancements to our products, how do we ensure that what would be the right North Star metric that I could be using it to ensure that the customers are actually adopting my feature or not?
See, two things, right? I'll take a step back here. So just because two things. One is, just if let's say you're launching a new feature, or let's say you're offering something, um, uh, some revisions or enhancements on top of the existing product, your North Star should not change unless until your business objectives are changing, right?
Mhm.
But having said that, do you know why you even have built those enhancements or the features, additional features?
Yeah, so the reason behind was we had received a lot of customer issues wherein the Oracle core product was not able to provide the right functionality, and that's where we kind of figure out ways where on the platform we could find out workarounds wherein we can come up with these minor enhancements. And we could see, in fact, the customers, once we launched them in the marketplace as a free app, customers were
Mhm.
actually starting to use it.
Okay. Do you see when it comes to the B2B setup, and when it comes to, solving the um, existing problems, right? The best way to measure is the number of customer complaints that you're getting. Like, for
Mhm.
example, if let's say in the month of in let's say last month you have some 100 customer complaints, right, through the ticketing system or etc. I'm sure, I'm assuming you have the mechanism to really break this down, the tickets by different, I would say, break it down into different silos to really understand what are the different types of issues, right? Classify them into different buckets. Now,
Correct.
if you're saying that problem A is major because most of the customers are actually talking about one specific problem, and you are saying that you have launched one free app in the marketplace in your system so that users can actually plug in this and solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
So the best way to measure is if those customer related problems or the tickets have come down or not. That is a metric for you to really see. And if it is still not happening, probably something else needs to be done, or probably the solution that you have offered might not be working. That's how I look at it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Vishnu. And it was
Yeah.
a really informative session. So thank you so much for giving us very good insights about how metrics are to be used as a PM. So it
Yeah.
was
Thank you.
really insightful session. Yeah, thank you.
We have Kishan too, who has raised his hand.
Hey,
Yeah.
hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Vishnu. So my question is more specific to a B2B2C setup. So I'm a product manager for a B2B2C company, and one challenge that I am facing with respect to metrics is since from a B2B perspective, we have defined a lot of metrics because ultimately when we do signing of deals with B2B customers, right? I mean, we kind of build a lot of billing metrics, right, on which we can build them, right? But then ultimately it's now becoming very difficult to kind of defining the core success metrics because probably we would have made the billing on different sort of metrics for hundreds of customers. So any suggestion?
I think it's very contextual, because I need to understand your product better to really answer this question, right? But you're saying the transactions are happening on different platforms. Is that what you're saying?
No, no. So basically, we are a B2B2C firm. Okay.
Okay.
So our B2B, basically, we sell our solutions to banks, and banks in turn, integrate them in their platform, and the users will be the end users, right?
Hmm.
So banks typically pay us, okay. But
Hmm.
then what one thing that has happened is from a matrix perspective, and this specifically is related to matrix. So the matrix perspective, since we deal with a lot of banks, we have kind of build hell lot of metrics based on based on closing the deals from a B2B perspective. Okay, I mean,
Hmm.
for some context it would be some active users, for some customers it might be number of transactions, right?
Hmm.
Now in such a complex scenario, what will be your thought process or advice on building a north star metric or a success metric?
See, two things. One is your North Star should always be aligned with your objective of the company. Okay. And there are, if you remember, we spoke about focus metric, which is nothing but there can be setups or scenarios where one North Star metric might not help you to really define the entire performance of the product. So you, in such scenarios, you can actually create different North Star metrics. But when I say different, provided they are complementing each other and at the same time they're actually adding up to your business values, right? So if the product itself are different, of course, for every product there'll be a North Star metric. But in your case, if you're saying, let's say your banks are indirectly selling it to the customers, so in when it comes to the B2B, even if it is B2B or B2B2C setup or scenario, I always look at customer complaints as one of the key inputs to really understand the performance of your product, right? It can be based on number of transactions done, successful transactions done, or it can be the number of people who are actually purchasing it. Of course, again, it depends on the collaborative marketing efforts, etc. But take one example or one company where, or understand who your major customer is, right? I'm pretty sure at least 20 to 30% of the revenues may come from one specific customer. Just an assumption. If that happens, really understand how their setup is, what are the, whether how we are trying to solve the problem, what are the kind of issues that you're getting, and try and see if you can actually break it down for one customer, the large customer, and then trying to see if you can actually replicate if it is able to solve your problem. And then one more thing, and especially in B2B, right? Yeah, customer complaints or customer churn is a major issue, right? So, and that happens, and sometimes the customers or your clients might not even give any feedback, and they simply churn out, right? Even then, it is really understand to really reach out to them, understand what the pain points are, and at few scenarios, your B2B clients may not give any feedback, but they still continue to use your product, right? So sometimes no feedback is also good feedback, right? Which means there are no customer complaints as well. So you just need to really think from their perspective and see what is actually happening. So to keep it short, I would say, if you're not able to figure out the North Star metric for the whole, break it down and try and see if you can solve it for one large customer, and try and see if you're able to replicate. If you're not able to replicate, and if there are no common patterns that exist, probably you might have to break it down the entire product in different silos.
Yeah, I think that helps, choosing the large customer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vishnu. I think due to time constraints, we'll have to wind up now. That'll have to be our last question. Just thank you, Vishnu, for delivering this brilliant session. You provided some really great and thought-provoking insights and information, and I'm sure all the attendees have taken away a lot from this.
Cool. Thank
We
you.
immensely enjoyed having you. So please accept this certificate of appreciation from the Institute. I will share this across with you, and I would appreciate if you could share it with your network.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. And to all our attendees, we've got something cool that we want you to know about. It's our newsletter. It's a treasure trove of product management, strategy, and leadership tips and insights. Subscribe to stay updated with the product community. We also host various knowledge sharing events just like this. You can keep up to date with them by the link in the chat. Our next one is taking place on the 22nd of November, which is this Wednesday, on the topic leveraging customer interviews to build better products. Finally, want to thank all the attendees here for joining in. If I could request you to take a few minutes of your time to scan the QR code on the screen and leave any reviews, feedback, or queries, we would greatly appreciate it. I'll just wait here for a few seconds so you can scan that. Okay, great. Finally, thank you, Vishnu. Thank you, all our attendees. I thank you all for giving us your valuable time, and I hope you've had a fruitful time at this session, and I look forward to hosting you in the future. On that note, I end today's session. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Thanks. Bye.